I'm here with State Representative Caleb Rudow. He is challenging Congressman Chuck Edwards for the District 11 congressional seat. Thank you for being with us here today. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the invitation. It's an honor to be here.
Let's go ahead and dive right in. You're running for Congress. Why, and do you think you can win?
You know, my background is as an organizer, and I really believe in the power of people and the power of conversations and the power of getting out there and talking to folks, because I think Chuck Edwards and I think the extremist Republican Party have just lost touch of what the average voter cares about. And we've gotten, distracted, and I think he's gotten distracted with culture wars and with issues that I think are not the most important for the people of Western North Carolina.
Well, starting with partisanship, he says the number one thing on the agenda this fall is funding the government. Do you think the Republican Party can get that done in time before they have to shut down the government?
It's a great question. Unfortunately, I think the Republican Party has been taken over by extremists who are more interested in destroying the government than they are funding it and making it work. And they're more interested in starting culture wars, and they're more interested in attacking immigrants than they are about talking about the real issues. And we've seen this from the presidential level down to the governorship and Mark Robinson running in North Carolina, and we've seen it with Chuck Edwards. I think instead of focusing on the most important issues out here, he's focused on attacking the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians for legalizing pot. He's focused on bullying Asheville and Buncombe County. And I really think this region deserves a representative who's going to be out there and is going to listen and is going to focus on helping people more than just trying to divide us.
Well, one of the distinctions about being in a national office like a congressional representative is that you're dealing with not only national but international issues. Former President Trump is calling for more and higher tariffs. Where are you on this?
This is pretty clearly going to be a tax on working families in the United States. And I used to run a small business. I've got a master's in policy and I've studied economics. And we know what happens when you impose tariffs like that. Those tariffs get passed on to the consumer. And it just doesn't make economic sense. And that's not just me. That's pretty much every major economist has said this is going to be a tax on working families. It's going to be a tax on the people who, frankly, can't make ends meet already.
So what happens in this election actually may come down to the voters of North Carolina.
Yeah.
How important is your vote if you're a North Carolinian?
Incredibly important. North Carolina has always been a swing state. We have had Democratic governors and we've had Republican legislatures, and it's always been purple. And I think the energy we're seeing here from folks all across Western North Carolina and across the state is just incredible. I had two events in Henderson County yesterday. The Henderson Democrats are really fired up. Folks, as far as Cherokee are energized this year, and they're energized because there is a really stark choice for voters this year. It's between, folks who are focused on culture wars, who are focused on bullying people, who are focused on sending our country back, and the Democratic Party, which I really believe is focused on finding a way forward, finding a way to see what brings us together more than what divides us.
Well, taking what is a local issue or a statewide issue to the national level, recreational marijuana. You know where Chuck Edwards stands on this. Where are you?
I think we should legalize cannabis, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. And I think number one, it's ironic that somebody who's a guns dealer, as an arms merchant, is worried about pot, which we have seen, over and over again, cannabis being a substance that has not increased health problems. And if you want to talk about health problems, let's talk about alcohol. Let's talk about other substances. Let's focus on the substances like opioid addiction and fentanyl in this country that are real threats to the people here. And look, cannabis is something that I think should be legal, and I think the majority of voters in North Carolina across this country believe that as well.
All right, abortion. Do you believe that abortion as it existed under Roe v. Wade should be a national law?
Absolutely. When you have this kind of patchwork of laws, it creates real healthcare problems. Number one, we have a hard enough time attracting doctors in North Carolina, and with the current abortion laws, we've had a harder time finding people who want to come practice here. And it's caused all sorts of terrible consequences on just people practicing and trying to get health care for women. And
so you don't believe in the state by state sort of patchwork?
We should absolutely make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again. And I'll tell you, every state that has put together this initiative on the ballot, it's been voted against, or it's been voted for reproductive rights and against these kinds of abortion bans. And that's the real challenge here. I think politicians in this country are just out of step with, and Republican politicians are out of step with where the average voter is.
All right, I want to ask you about a topic that's gotten really hot the past few days. Political violence in rhetoric.
Yeah.
Do both parties need to notch down the political rhetoric?
You know, I always describe my job as being really kind of a weird job in the North Carolina House, and I have to work with my colleagues, but I'm also trying to fire them every 2 years in an election, and that's challenging. But I really think that's what the job is. It's to stand up for what you believe in and show the contrast, and it's to try to find ways we bring people together. And you know, I really think in the work I've done in the North Carolina House, we've done that. We did a bipartisan skydiving event where a Democrat and Republican jumped out of a plane for raising money for food banks. We've done bipartisan sing-alongs, and I really believe, you know, I think we can all tone down the rhetoric, and I also believe that, you know, we have to take our own, you know, take toxic polarization as something we can all do something about. And I think as a leader, that means I have to find ways to bring Democrats and Republicans together, and I think all citizens need to do that as well.
But words matter.
Sure.
So some words can cause repercussions. And
Yep.
being accountable for that is something that, you know, are you suggesting both parties need to be aware of?
No, you know, I think we have to use language to talk about the threat this year. And frankly, I do believe democracy is under threat. I mean, that was January 6th. And I think when you know, we have to be able to say tough things in public, because that's my job, is to alert the public of what's going on and make sure they know the real threats that are happening. And I don't believe that, you know, that kind of rhetoric is what led to, you know, any of the assassination attempts, frankly. I think there is all sorts of other challenges with mental health issues. There are challenges with folks just having unfettered access to guns. Right. And look, you know, I always think we need to treat the other side with you know, I won't say, you know, negative personal things about people, but we need to be able to tell people the real threat that is in this country. And there is also a real difference between Democrats saying, look, I think democracy is under threat, versus Michelle Morrow from the Republican Party saying, you know, we need to attack people, or, you know, Mark Robbins is saying some people need killing. Yeah. And those are two very different ways to frame an issue. And we can talk about important things, and we can talk about the differences between our parties, and I think politicians should be able to do that, but we can't go overboard, and I think the Republican Party has gone overboard.
Well, speaking of talking, are you willing to debate Chuck Edwards right here live in the studio?
Absolutely. You know, I think most elections, you know, politicians debate, because that's what our system is about. It's about, you know, sharing ideas and having hard conversations, and that's what I think elected officials should do. And I think, you know, Chuck Edwards either doesn't care that, you know, people need to hear us talk, or he's scared. And I'm not sure which one of those is. But I really think, you know, I'm happy to have this conversation, but we honestly should be having this on a debate stage.
So you're willing to challenge him to a debate?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, we challenged Chuck Edwards at every location. That was at SIBO, at Blue Ridge Public Radio, here, and he said no to all the invitations. And that says something about him. That, look, like, I always try to have conversations with people I have disagreements with, because I think that's both how we come together and solve problems, and it's also how we reduce polarization.
Well, there's a month and a half left to go, so we'll see what happens between now and then.
That's it. Chuck, I hope you change your mind.
All right, Caleb Rudow, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Is that all you want to talk about? Is that it? Do we need to do the ending again?
Yeah, let's do that again real quickly. Ready?
I can't look at the camera if I look that. Chuck,
you know, just
that's too weird.
I'll thank you, and then we can just turn to the camera together, okay?
Right.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Stand by. Caleb Rudow, pardon me.
You messed that up.
Yeah,
that
I messed it up the first time, too.
You
Yeah.
did good. Ru is in stew, Dow is in cow, for all the kids at home.
All right, Caleb Rudow, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it.